With the Switch 2 finally announced and its showcase coming up soon, I, like many others, are very excited to actually see what new things Nintendo has cooking up to be coming out soon. And with at least a slight teaser of a new Mario Kart coming out, it wouldn't be a bad bet to assume in the near future there might be a bit of information coming out for a new Smash Brothers. And like assumed many times before, the idea of a new Smash Brothers bringing everyone back again just seems very impossible and probably will never happen again. So I thought before the showcase came out, just in case there is any announcements, I do like everyone else does, and at some point, and make a tiered deduction list, cut list. So I have about what I would assume, according to the Smash website, kind of, I'm bending the rules a little bit. There are 86 characters, which means cutting that in half would bring it down to unrounded 43. And instead of going one by one or by release order, I thought it'd be easier, much like on the website, to do everything by franchise representation. But as you can see, I have a couple other different tiers here that aren't just keep and go. I kind of felt that the keep and go would be kind of boring, so I thought I'd introduce a few other ideas to bring into it, like combo, an idea that's pretty seen regularly in Smash Brothers, and pretty much combining characters together in one shape or form, which kind of goes into my little bit of a cheat, because on the Smash website it has me as just one single rep, even though there's the gunner, sword fighter, and brawler. But if they're going to count it as one, I'm just going to add them into the combo section right now. I don't really know what I would want them to do with the Miis that would be different, as in combining them together. I just kind of assumed that with a new game they would try and overhaul it, because every game ever since they came out, there's always been a little bit of tweaks in and out, which is why down at the bottom, instead of saying gone, there's also /me scraps, because I'm assuming any characters that I would take out could easily have some of their abilities, if not most of their abilities, given to the Miis to try and make them a more diverse character slot that would really make them more, not interesting, because the Miis are very interesting with how you get to choose different abilities, but just to have extra stuff on top of it, like maybe different passives along with their fighting moves and smash moves and whatnot. And then you have boss fights, which seems really self-explanatory. It's pretty much, there's some characters on the roster that I think would work better as final opponents in like classic modes and whatnot, and then would also flush out the boss rush mode if we ever get that back. I think that'd be really fun to have them there, so there's more differences than just master hand and whatnot and stuff like that. Super assists, there's some characters I will cut from the roster, but I feel really need to still have a bit of representation and would do really well just as an assist trophy, but as in like a very special assist trophy, kind of the equivalent of, there's the hammer, then there's the golden hammer, there's the pokeball, then there's the master ball. There would be assist trophies and then super assists. Maybe they would have like a golden shine to them or something to indicate that, and maybe they would stick around just a little bit longer. Maybe if an opponent eliminates them, maybe that would count as a stock for them for point systems and whatnot. Obviously they wouldn't keep their full fighting style. They would have maybe very limited styles of what they do. And then there's obviously gone/me scraps, which I kind of explained a little bit back during the combo. It's pretty much people who I can't really see coming forward with us. So we're going to start with the main franchise, essentially. The man that built Nintendo, essentially, the Super Mario franchise. So I'm going to run through the characters and then we'll go to the explanations afterwards. And obviously, we're keeping Mario, we're keeping Peach, Daisy's gonna go, Dr. Mario's gonna go, Bowser's obviously a keep. I turned Bowser Jr. into a super assist, we'll get into that. Luigi's gonna be kept, Rosalina's gonna be kept, and Piranha Plant's gonna be turned into a boss character. So the explanations of this are very easy. The keeps are plain and simple. We're never going to get rid of Mario, Peach, and Bowser. Luigi is always going to be a close second. He's become different enough that keeping him around is worth it. He's not as much of a clone as he used to be way back in the N64 days. In Daisy and Dr. Mario, sadly, a lot of the Gons in like the multi-franchise representation are going to be clones. I've never been a big fan of Echo Fighters. I understand their place in it for having a character, but not having to build a full fighting style for them. But in this dream scenario, where there's probably plenty of time to be making characters up and making them different, I just can't really see Echoes ever sticking around. So just for future for this video, if you see an Echo, they're probably not staying unless I think they're more interesting than the actual original character that came from them. Bowser Jr. being a super assist. I was never a big fan of Bowser Jr. in the cart. I don't know why the cart is my big sticking point for why I don't like him. Like, if he was on his feet and the car maybe came out of nowhere the same way Wario does with his motorcycle, I could see that. But I've just never been a big fan of person in machine while fighting in this type of game. And then we have Piranha Plant, which I put in the boss category, which is easy to explain. I think it'd be really fun that maybe at the end or maybe in the middle of a classic mode or just an all-star run or anything like that, where you would fight the small Piranha Plant. And then maybe there'll be like a cutscene, kind of like in Melee, where the Piranha Plant flies off to the side. And then obviously Peanut Piranha, the big one, comes out and you have to fight that as a major boss. I think that'd be really fun. The Plant was obviously put in kind of as a joke bonus character, and I think it's had its fun, but I think it would be really much more fun as a miniature opponent that leads into an actual big boss battle. Now we get into the DK, the Donkey Kong series. And there's only 3 reps, so this is going to be probably faster than Mario was. We're going to take King K. Rool and we're put him in Keep. And then we're going to take Diddy and Donkey and put them in Combo. King K. Rool, I feel, is different enough and represents the series that I think of when Donkey Kong is brought up, that he probably should stick around for a bit, at least for maybe a next game or so. So, plain and simple right there. I like his style. I like the belly absorption thing. I think that's really fun. I think there's lots of callbacks to him in the Donkey Kong Country series that really works out really well. But combining Diddy and Donkey, I see this more as a combination that's in the style of like the Ice Climbers. Like, you would mostly be controlling Donkey Kong, and then Diddy would be your assistant in the back, kind of helping out. Obviously, if he gets separated, he would do his own thing to try and get back to you so you can combine and whatnot. And I like this idea because I would argue there's 3 like generations of Donkey Kong that people think of when you say it. There's a really old generation. When you say Donkey Kong, they go all the way back to the arcade. There's the like midpoint where it's, I would argue, Donkey Kong Country, where this representation's coming from, where they're a team, each one of them's a hit, and they fight King K. Rool. That's kind of their big bad for that franchise. And then there was like a 2000s era Donkey Kong, where that's where all the experimental stuff came in, with the bongos and clapping and rhythm games and whatnot. And he kind of became more of arguably a Mario character, showing up in the side games, being the equivalent of the good Bowser space in the Mario parties and whatnot. But I think as time has gone on, Nintendo, especially with their re-releases of the new Return games, has really gone back to that middle time period where it's like, no, Donkey Kong and Diddy are a team, or Donkey Kong, whoever is like his special assistant that day, is, part of the team. They work together. I think everyone would agree that Donkey Kong really needs an update to his fighting system. It hasn't changed very much, arguably, I would argue. And I think combining him with Diddy and having some team moves that could work out would make things a whole lot better. Maybe even bringing some of the animals that help out in there. That'd be fun. And with Diddy coming along, you could arguably take some of his specialty moves that he has that may not make the transition into combining them together, and you can move those down into the me scraps. Like maybe there could be a recovery with the jetpack that he could do. I could even see them giving the banana taunt where he throws a banana behind him and shoots the bananas. Stuff like that would be funny. Now we go from a franchise of DK that only had 3 representatives that cut down to 2. Now we're going into The Legend of Zelda, which technically has more representatives, but it's going to probably get cut down a lot more. Because obviously we're going to keep Link. He's always going to stay. Ganon's always going to stay. We're going to keep Ganon. Young Link and Toon Link, unfortunately, are gone. And then Zelda and Sheik will be moving up into the combo section. Another really fast explanation. Young Link and Toon Link are going to be gone because they're not even really Echo fighters anymore, because I feel like they're different enough from Link that you can still see some of the differences, but together they're most definitely echoing on top of each other. And I feel most of the moves that they have could easily be taken and put into the Mii's. The different types of arrows and types of damage they do and whatnot could be easily moved over and have just maybe like small check boxes with like, your arrow move does fire damage, or it can do ice damage, or it can do electricity, something like that. I feel like they're mostly just here because Ultimate wanted everybody there, so they had to be brought in along with everyone else. Zelda and Sheik being put into combo is pretty much going back to me being a Melee fan. I think most Smash people are Melee fans, or at least really accustomed to the rules and styles of Melee. The only downside I would have about it is I don't want to lose like the down smashes. So I kind of figured maybe instead of that being the trigger that transforms the Zelda into Sheik and Sheik back into Zelda, maybe we could take out one of the taunts and have maybe one of the taunt cues be the actual switch. That way, if someone never wants to play Sheik or never wants to play Zelda, they only want to play one character, they can still do that without losing any of their abilities that they've had for the past few games when they got split up in Wii U and 3DS. Next up is the Metroid series, which, I'm gonna be fair, Metroid is one of those games I know more about the lore than actual gameplay. So let's do this one quick again. Dark Samus is obviously gone. Ridley, I'm turning him back into a boss. And then Samus and Zero Suit Samus are obviously going into the combo section again. Dark Samus being gone, plain and simple, never really liked Echo, never really got into Echoes. In this world, we're gonna get rid of them. Ridley, I like the idea of Ridley being in the game, but I still preferred him as a boss type character. I think we lost something with that. Especially, I'm not going to argue he's too big for Smash, but it is more impressive seeing him to full size scale when you're fighting him in a boss battle, like in Brawl. And then Samus and Zero Suit Samus being combined, I know they've become a lot more, at least somewhat more different as time's gone on. I would say go back to the way it was in Brawl, where you could choose in the beginning if you wanted to start out as Samus or Zero Suit Samus, and then the special would either get rid of the suit or bring the suit back, whichever one you were starting from. Maybe not have it be a special, maybe have it be an ability that builds up over time, kind of like maybe like the KO meter for Little Mac or something like that, where over time you could either do a big blast and get rid of it and just have it not be as strong as the actual Smash ability. But I think putting them back together would make that a lot more funner. And the next two franchises will be combining together just because I think it'll be easier and quicker to get it done. I value your time as an audience. And that'll be the Kirby and Starfox series, which Kirby is the easiest one to do because I have it. We're keeping Kirby, we're keeping King DDD, and we're keeping Meta Knight. And then for the Starfox series, obviously we're going to keep Fox. And then I have it both ways where I'm going to put Falco in Gone and then Wolf in Super Assist. But obviously, for me, they're swappable. The explanations for Kirby is I think all three characters are different enough that they could represent that franchise and not feel very samey on top of each other. Obviously, King DDD and Kirby kind of share stuff together, but they're different enough that I think you could get away with it. And obviously keep Meta Knight around just to scare people who still think this is Brawl. For Starfox is a franchise that doesn't need as much representation, I would argue, at least now in the modern era. You keep Fox around because he's a classic essentially at this point. He's always been around. And then even though everyone has always spread out somewhat from being an Echo fighter, but I still feel like Falco and Wolf are still close enough that you can get rid of them and turn one of them in Super Assist. I would argue Wolf be more of a Super Assist, but in the grand scheme of things, I think when it comes to cutting down characters, unfortunately Starfox, with the fact it's not as represented and not that it's not important, but it's not treated as well as some of the other franchises, that we probably should cut back on how many characters are actually in the game for them. Up next is another big heavy hitter franchise. We got Pokemon. And this is where things are going to start getting weird and maybe even somewhat controversial. Some people might actually get upset, because I've only kept 2 characters from this franchise. So let's go down them real quick. Pikachu is obviously going to be a keep. Pichu is obviously gone. I turned Jigglypuff and Mewtwo in the Super Assists. Lucario I put in the gone. Pokemon Trainer I put in the keep. Incineroar's gone and Greninja's gone. Alright, so hear me out before you get too upset. Pokemon I feel is best represented by having classic representation and then whatever the modern representation is. So I feel in a new game, you would obviously keep Pikachu and then add in a new Pokemon to fill in the spot. It's kind of how I always felt things should have been. Like we had Mewtwo in Melee, and then Lucario, and then we got Incineroar and Greninja and whatnot. Later on, as each Smash came out, there was different Pokemon that came with it. So I kind of went with, obviously, Pikachu. Pikachu's never going to go anywhere unless the franchise does a 180 and Eevee finally becomes a new representative of Pokemon, like full time, and then maybe we'll get Eevee at some point in Smash. Pichu's gone. It's an Echo. It's more of a comedy Echo. If you want something that takes damage over time, you could make that a weird ability for the Miis for some reason if you think that's a good idea. Maybe it could give you a bonus even though you're taking damage. Jigglypuff being a Super Assist, I think, is mostly here because of seniority. I don't really think Jigglypuff needs to be in the game anymore. Obviously, it was more of a convenience thing for the 64 back when there wasn't a lot of time and space to do stuff. And we already had Kirby, who was small, pink, and round. It's like, oh, we can put Jigglypuff in. He's small, pink, and round. So I think maybe giving Jigglypuff a shout out, maybe when the Super... And I put him in Super Assist, but maybe they could put him in the Master Ball, and that'd be a fun little thing as well. It really depends on, because Pokemon are weird with where they're placed and stuff. Mewtwo's in Super Assist. We're never going to lose Mewtwo. He has to come in and do something or cause some type of chaos. Lucario being gone is simply because I wanted to cut the roster down, and Pokemon has such a huge roster. I think his special ability of being more powerful as damage goes on could easily be moved over as a character trait for the Miis, and you wouldn't lose very much. You maybe have it as a special ability for the Brawler. You could pick it and do the same thing, maybe just with different flame effects other than just blue. Pokemon Trainer being a keep, I think, is more nostalgia for me. Honestly, I'm going to be fair with that. I like the idea of all the starters from the first game being represented in some way, shape, or form. I would argue maybe we could get more down smashes. Like we could keep the one that Charizard had back in for Wii U and 3DS, and maybe instead of having the trade out function be an actual move, maybe do like how I had it for Sheik and Zelda, where maybe a taunt would be what caused the Pokemon in and out to be switched. I also like the idea of going back to the old style of them taking specific damage depending on their Pokemon type. I know that wasn't really well done because there's different fire types and different water types and I almost said earth types for the games and whatnot. But I think that actually was a really special thing for them. Obviously, that makes certain Pokemon weaker than others, but I think that was a fun thing they had way back in the day when this character first came through. And then Incineroar and Greninja are more modern Pokemon. They're most definitely out of my wheelhouse. I've never played with Incineroar or Greninja in Pokemon. That wasn't really my thing as I got out of Pokemon. But I feel like they would be gone just because with a new game, Nintendo would probably pick a new Pokemon probably to be representative of the current or future of the Pokemon franchise. And I think they could get a lot of mileage out of whatever they picked without necessarily needing Incineroar or Greninja back. Obviously, you could probably put them in the Pokeballs or maybe even a Super Assist, but I didn't want to fill up everything with Super Assists. I wanted to kind of spread out this tier list so it didn't just look like I was just trying to keep everybody but not have them be playable, you know what I mean? Alright, now we're going to go in and do another combo because one franchise is too small and the other franchise I have no idea what I'm talking about. So we're going to combine Earthbound and Fire Emblem real quick and get them out of the way. Earthbound is easy and simple. We're keeping Ness and we're going to get rid of Lucas. And then for Fire Emblem, I'm actually going to have to read this verbatim real quick. We're going to keep Blythe. We're going to keep Robin. Corum we're going to keep. And then unfortunately, everyone else I put in the gone category. So Crom's gone, Marth's gone, Roy's gone, Lucina's gone, and Ike is gone. So for Earthbound, we unfortunately run into the thing of when there's only two representatives. I feel most people when they do a list like this have to get rid of one or the other, if not both, and I didn't want to get rid of both, so I just kind of went with the mainstay character, which is Ness. Everyone knows Ness. Most people, at least over here in the States, that was their first introduction to Ness, more or less. And I think Ness, just edges out just a little bit to the point that he would obviously stay up as opposed to Lucas. And then going into Fire Emblem, I know nothing about Fire Emblem. It is not a franchise I've ever even looked into, unfortunately. I hear it's really fun, but it's turn-based strategies, not my best thing. That's kind of why I've kind of slowly moved out of Pokemon. It's like I didn't really like taking turns. I mostly kept the three, Robin, Corrin, and Blythe, because they're the most different out of them. I know a lot of the people I didn't keep are, some of them are echoes, some of them aren't, some of them are just slightly different, but they're all kind of sword-based characters, which, not to sound rude, because I know that's probably the biggest critique of Fire Emblem is that they're all sword-based characters, but when you have the sword Mii fighter there, you can kind of be like, okay, well, any small little abilities we can take, we can move into that. Obviously, this list can move around. Maybe someone who's more Fire Emblem knowledgeable than me can come in and say why this is a dumb decision and why keeping these three as opposed to these five doesn't make any sense. And then maybe if I ever had to switch one out, maybe Roy. I like Roy mostly because he's the only one with different colored hair out of those ones. Everyone else has like bluish hair. He at least has like reddish orange hair. Alright, now that we're getting towards the franchises that have way less characters than Mario or the Pokemon series, we're still going to keep combining them. So we're going to go through with Kid Icarus, Animal Crossing, and Xenoblade. For Kid Icarus, we're going to keep Palutena and Pit, and we're going to get rid of Dark Pit. It's going to be gone. Animal Crossing, we're keeping Isabella and getting rid of the villager. And for Xenoblade, we're going to keep Pyra and get rid of Shulk. Obviously, for the Kid Icarus series, we got rid of Dark Pit, mostly because in the grand scheme of things, he's a big Echo Fighter, and we're not going to go down that chat again of why Echo Fighters are needed and why they're not. And then Palutena and Pit, I think, work perfectly as the types of characters they want to be. Getting rid of the villager in Animal Crossing, though, was a decision that I made because as much as I like the villager, I feel that he doesn't really represent Animal Crossing as well, because the villager is supposed to represent you. But I don't really see that being a thing, especially with the Miis. And like, no, the Miis kind of represent you. You make your Mii into you. Whereas the villager is more of just a weird character placeholder type deal. Where I think more people would relate to Isabelle as a representative face of Animal Crossing. Because if it wasn't going to be her, I guess Tom Nook would be that. I feel that the Animal Crossing rep should be an actual character that you know the name of, and not just village, person who lives here. It could be you, especially since you can't really modify the villager to look more like a character you would play. Like, maybe if they made that a feature, it would make more sense, but I think that would be pushing that character too far. Just have it be someone who you can actually see the face of, that people would want to buy merch of. Not that people don't want to buy merch of the villager, but I bet you Isabella's merch sells way better than generic villager merchandise. Xenoblade was a weird decision because obviously we're still running into the 2-character franchise type deal, and I kept Pyra and Mythra around because I like the idea. I've always been a big fan of characters that can swap places. Obviously with my Sheik and Zelda input, it kind of makes a lot of sense. And then I think the stuff that Shulk does could easily be turned into its own little thing for different, like maybe the Mii sword fighter could obviously get those abilities of like the speed ups and the slowdowns and whatnot. And it doesn't help that Xenoblade is another franchise that I more or less missed the boat on, and so I have to judge these characters more off of a play style than an actual character representation like I did with Animal Crossing. Now we move on to the final 3 franchises that have multiple reps before we actually get into the single rep category. We're going to be doing Street Fighter, Final Fantasy, and Castlevania coming up. Street Fighter, I'm going to get rid of Ken and Ryu. Just put them both in the gone section. We'll get into that later. Final Fantasy, we're going to keep Cloud, and Sephiroth is going to easily be moved into the boss category on this list, for at least for me. And then Castlevania is probably the least interesting of all 3 of these. We're going to keep Simon, and we're going to get rid of Richter. Let's start off with the weird one first, Street Fighter. Even though I like the idea of other fighting franchises coming into the game, I don't like the idea of them staying around long term. I think it was a fun idea to have them come in once and do it, but the idea of bringing other fighters in, I know they are representatives of mascots technically, but in Smash I think of actual like characters you really wouldn't see in fighting games, at least not traditional ones. And I think bringing in other representatives who have actual fighting backgrounds, it's kind of like when you go to an amateur boxing match. It's like, okay, it's for amateurs. You don't really expect a Mike Tyson to walk in and start sweeping the floor of everybody, you know. It's like, this is supposed to be for the fun of the game and not for seriousness. And I feel bringing in fighting representatives kind of takes the fun out of Smash, because I'm way more of a party Smash guy than I am a serious Smash guy. I am, okay, everyone for themselves, put items on high, let's do this, it's going to be chaotic, rather than, 1v1 on Final Destination, no items. I feel that's very boring to the spirit of Smash Brothers. It's supposed to be more of a fun fighting game that you can have with multiple people as opposed to a one-on-one situation. That's not my style of Smash. Cloud being kept is easy. I never want to lose Cloud. I think that was a fun get for the franchise. And I like the idea of Sephiroth being put into the boss battle category, because I always thought that was the funnest thing when he first came around. The little boss rush mode, and then at the end you got to fight Sephiroth. And then obviously, I think if I remember correctly, if you beat him, you got to unlock him early. Obviously, you wouldn't get that. But I just like the idea of the one-winged angel actually being a boss in this game, and having... Obviously, you would have to switch out some of his maneuvers and give him different things to do that would make him more boss-like, to have it kind of make more sense. But I just like the idea of that. And then moving on to the most boring, which I always thought it was weird that they introduced Simon and then Richter not too far behind each other. I kind of felt it was an Echo Fighter for Echo Fighter's sake for some reason. And honestly, I'm picking Simon over Richter because of the TV show of all things. I liked Simon more than I like Richter in that. So I was like, okay, well, we'll have that be the balancing decision that lets me choose which one goes where. And now we're going to move on to single reps. And I feel the easiest way to do this, if you want to get out on time and beat the traffic, we'll do who I want to keep, and then we'll do super assists / combos and whatnot, and then we'll move on to just completely gone. Alright, and here we go. We're going to go just down the line and go from there. Captain Falcon's going to be staying with us. Mr. Game & Watch is going to be staying. We're going to keep Wario. We're going to keep Sonic. Olimar is going to be staying with us. Rob, the robot's not going anywhere. We're most definitely not going to let Mega Man or Pac-Man get away from us in this game. Inklin's not going anywhere. Bayonetta's going to be staying with us. Banjo-Kazooie at least needs to stay around for one more game. As much as people don't like him, Steve's going to be staying with us. Snake's not going anywhere anytime soon. And probably the biggest get that we had for a while, Sora is going to be staying with us. So the single rep list is, I would argue, pretty obvious. I don't think there's any shockers in here of characters that I would want to stay. Captain Falcon's never going to go anywhere. Honestly, this is more or less the Captain Falcon game and Friends type deal. But it does help that there's only one F-Zero representative, and it's Captain Falcon. I feel like if there was more F-Zero representatives, we'd run to a Starfox situation. We would just get rid of half of them, probably most of them, and just keep one of them around. Game & Watch is staying because I've always liked I like the idea of the history lesson in Smash. That's why there's a couple older franchises that are still staying. And you can't get too much older than Game & Watch. There's a few of them, but he's pretty far back there, so it's fun to keep him around. Wario's going to be staying. And that's mostly because I think he does represent his franchise really well. Like, obviously, people would prefer if he was more of his Mario self from back in the day. Maybe they could find a way to combine those together. But for right now, I think Wario works really well as his own single representative for the WarioWare games. I think if we ever switch that out, and maybe got like Jimmy T or in it, or anything like that, maybe we could lose Wario or move Wario into the Mario section. But I think that'd be kind of weird to have him not represent his own weird little pocket of the Nintendo universe. Sonic's never going to go anywhere, at least until the rights run out and stop paying the checks. To have essentially what your big rival was back in the day be part of your system and like get to interact with everyone is too good. Obviously, he needs an update to his fighting style. I think he's very bland with his fighting style, but other than that, he's got to stay just for the sight of it. Still, it's still a little weird that he made it in at some point. I feel Olimar staying actually brings in a way different fighting style that would be hard to mimic with the Mii's. The idea of pulling out different little Pikmin and having them do different things and work different ways, I think would work really well. Obviously, I would go back to a more chaotic system of you don't know which type of Pikmin you're picking out. It would be random and whatnot, but other than that, I think he works really well. Rob sticking around, I like because he is in some games, but this is representation of products as opposed to game characters, and I don't really think there's any other character that's like that I can think of. Maybe Duck Hunt representing the light gun, but that's about it. But I think Rob sticking around really fills a category of representation that doesn't really have a lot of characters you could choose from. Because what else would you pick? Maybe playing cards, maybe that extendo arm thing that Nintendo made way back in the day. Maybe have a battle map that's a love hotel. I don't really know what to do to represent outside forces of the gaming world other than this robot that we had back in the day that technically saved gaming in one way or shape or form. Mega Man and Pac-Man staying makes the most sense when it comes to the idea that Smash is a kid playing in his room with toys and like hitting them together. Obviously, you would want these two legendary characters to cross over with these other legendary characters, and losing them would just be a really weird idea. I think if I had to lose one, I would lose the Mega and keep Pac, but that's just more of my old school idea, nostalgia thinking. And the playstyle for Inkling, I think, really works out a whole lot better. I like the idea of working with the paint, and I think it also shows a lot of representation of newer Nintendo franchises. At least the franchises that, still work and pay off. Splatoon is huge. I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere. It shows off one of those rare times where Nintendo tries something and it actually works out very well for them. Bayonetta and Snake make a lot of sense as a representative that is catered towards, I don't want to say an older audience, but most definitely higher up, audience. And at least with Snake, I like the idea that keeping technically what was at least the first announcement of a third-party character in the game really works, I feel like Bayonetta's not going anywhere because she represents what would be the more mature side of Nintendo. Obviously, Banjo-Kazooie was probably thought of being a cool addition ever since the N64 version of this game. When that came out, they're like, oh, that Banjo should be in here. Probably Conquer too, but I don't think we're ever going to get Conquer. At least not anytime soon. And Steve being part of the biggest franchise ever, there's not a lot of games that can say they outsold Minecraft. I would argue most games can't say that, except maybe packaged in games. Maybe Wii Sports outsold Minecraft, but technically does that count? I think Sora was a huge get, especially for being like one of the final characters to come out, because there was so much doubt that with like the different copyright stuff that he would never show up in this game, and then to somehow manage and work every small little detail out, I think really does really well. Alrighty, and now on to the rest. We're gonna run through the Super Assist category real fast, and then we're gonna go straight into Gone. So for Super Assist, we're gonna be putting Yoshi in there. We're gonna be putting Duck Hunt in there. The Ice Climbers are unfortunately going there. My main Little Mac is going in there. We'll get into that. And Wii Fit Trainer. For the Gone category, we have Hero from Dragon Quest, Joker from Persona, Terry from Fatal Fury, Min Min, and Kazuya from Tekken. Going into the Super Assist, all these characters are Nintendo characters. They own them. It would be really easy. I can't really see some of these characters coming back. I think the big one is Yoshi, and I think it's weird that Yoshi technically represents his own thing, even though the island games are different. I still feel like they're just in the Mario universe. They don't separate enough that he should count as his own rep. So he would have ended up here regardless, just by the fact that I needed to cut down the Super Mario franchise. And Yoshi's the reason why the Super Assist category was even invented, because I didn't want to cut him just flat out. So I was like, oh, we'll make him an assist trophy. And then I was like, well, he's a little bit more than an assist trophy. And it's like, okay, we'll make him an assist but better, I think would be what I said at the time when I was doing this. Because I know a lot of people don't like the idea of cutting like the first mainstays from like the very first game, but I think we've gone so far now that we can start to do that. Obviously, we'll never get to the point where Mario gets cut, but I feel like secondary characters like Yoshi could easily be moved down a peg. And that pretty much represents the other 4 characters too. Ice Climbers and Duck Hunt, I feel, even though they do get a good representation of like older games, now that we have third parties coming with even older stuff, we could easily slowly push them out and turn them into super assists. I think it'd be fun. Little Mac, unfortunately, as much as I like to play Little Mac, I would say he's such a standard character that his KO meter could be moved down to the Wii Scraps and be made into a special like ability thing for them. And after that, he doesn't really do much else. He's more of a joke, I think, in the grand scheme of things. And at least him being he was already a assist trophy before, so it wouldn't be the weirdest thing to have him go back down to there. And at least he would look nicer with this model as opposed to his other assist trophy back in the day. And Wii Fit Trainer was one of those characters that I never really knew where to place her. I actually, when I made this list originally, I forgot about her. I somehow skipped past her on the website. So she had to go somewhere, and I really didn't want to bring her into the mainstay, but I didn't really want to get rid of her. But I didn't really know where to place her. So I was like, I'll make her a super assist. Maybe her ability, she comes in and does breathing exercises with you, and you can gain buffs from that, probably. I'm not quite sure what you would do with her. And then we move into the last of the Gone category. Hero, I think, is fine as a character, but I think much like Shulk, I think his abilities could be easily transferred over to the Mii's. Maybe make a fourth Mii category. I know someone had, when I watched the video way back in the day, someone had the idea of like a mage Mii that would be more of like the spells type character, maybe something like that. Joker is a character from a franchise I haven't played, and I know everyone was very excited when he showed up, but I know each game in the Persona series is different. There's different characters, so maybe the next Persona, when it comes out, would have a very popular character and they could use one of them instead. I'm not really quite sure. It kind of lands under the idea of like how I feel Pokemon is. It's like, no, they would get a more up-to-date representative to be in the place of that. So that's why I kind of just decided to cut Joker out. Not being the most knowledgeable of what Persona would do, so Joker might be the only popular character in that franchise for all I know. I don't think that's true, but who knows. Terry and Kazuya land under the same idea of Street Fighter, where I'm not the biggest fan of actual fighting characters coming in. Obviously they come in once every now and then, but that's about it. There's not much to go off of that. I'd much rather have more non-fighting characters come in and be represented than that. And Min Min being cut is unfortunately just because I don't think the Arms franchise did as well as Nintendo wanted it to. And we already have a Arms representative in the assist trophy category, so I didn't really think she needed to be a super assist. So she just slowly got cut down as I went down the list multiple times. And then she really got cut down once I found out that I missed the Wii Fit Trainer. So she just pretty much always got bumped down all the way. So at the end of this, we have a standard in the keep list of 38. So that works. And with combos, there's characters being morphed together to make 4, bring us to a total of 42 characters, 3 bosses, and 10 super assists. And then 26 completely gone or made in the scraps for the new weird Mii character options idea I somewhat half-baked while making this list. I'd love to know what you guys think about this list. And then technically, I didn't get it to 43, I got it to 42. So also maybe tell me who you would actually bring in to make the 43rd character out of everyone I cut or turned into a super assist. You could move Yoshi up if you wanted to. I probably could have, but I just didn't feel the spirit of doing that while going through this list. And then don't be afraid to like if you think this was fun, and subscribe if you want to see me do other weird videos. I'm still doing my one and dones on my short quick reviews. I have some other weird little tier lists and rankings that I think would be really fun to talk about that aren't just Smash Brothers, but just gaming in general and other stuff in general. And thank you for letting me waste some of your time today.